What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale. Dan Favale. I don't know my own name. Back
That's
with with my with my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. We're in peak/rare form right now. Apparently, we're here to tier the Eastern Conference though because free agency isn't over, but it's like kind of dead, and it's like we're poking RFAs. Like, guys, just get your deals done. We know you're not going anywhere at this point, unless maybe your name's Jonathan Kuminga. But we're going to tier the Eastern Conference. We're going to do it live. You can comment. It's going to be fun. I'm sure everyone's going to agree with everything that we have to say. But first, before we get started, Grant, how's it feel knowing that you reported with me conjointly on a trade about LeBron going to the Dallas that is clearly going to happen now that all these sites and blue check marks are picking it up and reporting it as such?
it's all been worth it. That's really what I feel like. We've just this whole time we've just wanted to be insiders, and now you've spoken a trade into existence. So, like, what are the percentage chance that this trade? Can you lay out the? I mean, this isn't what this pod is supposed to be about, but just so people know what we're talking about.
Right. So there's something going on. We talked about it on the pod. I also wrote about it, but we were coming up with LeBron James trades, and the clue that it's not real is that the stuff that's going around is we're normally not the type of people that would say, oh, no, like that's totally our thing, just being repackaged as some idea. The Utah Jazz were involved, and they really didn't need to be. It was more trying to game it to figure out the Lakers' books better by getting rid of Jared Vanderbilt. So the rumor, I can't even, it's not a rumor. The aggregation that's being mispackaged that's going around is Dallas gets LeBron. The Lakers get P.J. Washington, Daniel Gafford, who is eligible to be traded, even though he signed an extension, Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, Kyle Anderson, and their own 2029 first-round pick back. The Jazz are getting, they're calling it picks. I think 3 second-round picks going there, and they're taking on Jared Vanderbilt, who has those 2 extra years furthermore than Kyle Anderson left on his deal. That was when I saw not LeBron to the Mavs is not something that we created, but when I saw the package, I was like, the Jazz didn't need to be there. And if it does go through, I feel like we should get some sort of a commission or something. Like, how does that work? But someone's got to have a trade bonus. And I would like part of it. That's all I'm saying.
Just not even like a big part. Just like 2% would be fine. It's probably a 15%.
Just 2% of that $1 million that's fine. Yeah,
I have no problem with that. No, I think it's great that the combination of AI and a rampant aggregation market has turned a made-up trade into a rumor that people actually have bought now.
And the other thing, being texted about it from people that are just, I know and respect. And this is not like, so it's like, wow, this thing is, I didn't realize it must have taken, because we talked about it a while ago, and I wrote about it a little bit ago. It was a slow burn. Like, normally these things are picked up like that. This one's been a slow burn. So you heard it here first, obviously. We were clearly reporting. We weren't just throwing ideas. We weren't just asking questions like we normally do.
Which we do.
I have some questions about the Eastern Conference, though.
Okay.
Do you? Or are you just, you're
totally understand it, and we're not going to have any difficult discussions about
it. Is the king we were mentioning Jeremiah Fears? Based off what I've seen from him in Summer League, I'm going to say no.
Hasn't looked great. I saw 2 assists to 10 turnovers, and like 29 points on 30-something shots. Not great.
I only read into Summer League when it's good. That's the only fun thing about Summer League is when it's good, just read into it. But if he's a first-year player, if he was like a third-year player, and it's okay, then we have.
And he's like built to be bad as a rookie. Like all the things he's good at and all the things he's bad at are just like that's going to be a bad rookie.
Don't you dare tell Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars that. Don't you dare.
I mean, they're just playing the long game.
So we started off the Eastern Conference pod talking about 4 Western Conference teams. Congratulations to us. Do you have any like criteria you were trying to follow? We have 6 tiers they'll be separated into. So like any notes or quotes or concerns before we get started?
Yeah, I probably should have a more like well-defined rubric here, but I do feel better about it because you came up. I don't know what your tiers look like. We didn't really discuss this too much beforehand. I think if I had to boil it down, I would just say I'm trying to split team. I guess it just has to be like championship equity or like likelihood of making the finals, or which really to me is like a pretty sort of this early. It's kind of a proxy for like how do you think the standings will shake out? You know, because you're sort of like you're saying the same thing whether you're tiering it based on like title equity or like who's going to win the conference during the regular season. Like to me, it's like early enough that those are kind of the same thing. But we will have discussions about a couple of these teams where it's like, their finish in the conference might not necessarily line up with what we think their title odds might be once the playoffs hit.
Do we need some type of rule? Because we're going to come to a consensus. Should we implement a rule on the spot where do we each get like 1 or 2 vetoes to where it's like you feel strongly about, I want to put the Knicks in tier F, which they're not. It's just a joke. And you're like, whoa, like, hold on. Like, I'm going to veto that. They go in tier S.
I support this. I will not use my veto on the veto rule.
All right, so we're each going to get a veto. That'll be fun. We ready to get started? And I guess we could just pick. We'll go back and forth on which teams. We're not going to go alphabetically because I don't think people will stay tuned to the end of that when you look at some of the teams in the East at the end of the alphabet. Let's get started here. Grant, you can pick the first team. Who you want to talk about?
Oh, we're not going to just go from the bottom up. We're just going to pick a random team. Great.
Oh, we could do that. You want to start there? It'd be funny.
I think we should start from the bottom and then work for. Yeah. So we're in tier F. This is our worst tier. Everybody's going to have. I mean, this won't be a shock. I think. So let's go Wizards. They are, unfortunately for them, although they don't.
We love the Wizards around here,
right?
Though.
Yeah, they're right where they want to be, right where they ought to be. I think this is just still very, very far away. Obviously, we like Koulibaly, we like Sarr, we like Bub Carrington, Kaishan George. We like Trey. I mean, like Trey Johnson looks interesting, at least in summer league. But this is like every one of those guys I mentioned. I think you don't get too far into like the give me the bio or give me the status report without hitting like, oh, there's like a real issue that this guy might not be good. Like Sarr's scoring efficiency or like George's 3-point shooting being all over them. Like they all have flaws, but I think generally speaking, we think Washington is going to be bad, but that's kind of the plan. So, this isn't like we're not killing them by putting them in the bottom tier. I don't think even Wizards fans have any illusions about how good this team will be. What do you have different Wizards thoughts? I mean, I feel like we've kind of been pretty well aligned on them for a while.
Yeah, the thing about the Wizards is they're trying very hard to be bad, and I think they'll be successful. I was trying to think, like, there's probably, one team that I could see being worse than them in the East. Like, I just don't, like, so that's
barring disaster, right? Like,
barring disaster. But is there a pathway towards them? Like, they already got rid, and he wasn't going to play a huge role anyway, but, like, you already get rid of Kelly Olynyk. If they decide to play, like, the older guys a lot, like, if Smart is still there and Middleton is still there and like, those are still really good basketball players that I could see them being friskier, especially if you're going to cake in, like, improvement from the young guys that you're, like, Alex Sarr's had some really good summer league moments, especially, like, defensively. So I'm with you. I'm not making like a tier like S case for the Wizards right now, but like they just have some guys who could pop, and then also some capable veterans that if they get improvement from the young guys, but they also have these playable veterans, it gets tough. They're gonna have. My point is they might have to make some moves to continue being as bad as they want for this season. Was my point.
Yeah, and some of those moves might just be like, hey, Chris Middleton, you're just not going to play that much. It may be that kind of a move where it's like we just understand what we're doing here on both sides. I actually think I think there's two teams that, like, without disaster striking, although one of them just like Charlotte and Brooklyn, I think they're both in this bottom tier for me. I could see either of those teams being worse than Washington. Charlotte's maybe the one you'd bump on just because, like, if we're saying no disasters allowed, then, well, the LaMelo Ball ankle injury feels pretty disastery, but does it? Because it's kind of like the expectation at this point that he's going to miss time. So there's like a fairly like mid-range outcome for Charlotte in which they win 22 games or something. You know what I mean? They have also more talent in general. Also, they're trying to be bad too. So, they're taking their time. They're not making win now moves, I guess is the more fair way to say it.
I think when you look at like having Colin Sexton there, like the moves they've made this offseason, I could see them being really good on offense, especially if LaMelo Ball plays in 50 games. Like the offense could legitimately be top 10, I think, except for the fact, like, what's the plan at center in Charlotte right now? I support the Mark Williams trade was fine. I'm not a Mark Williams guy overall, but it's like over like Diabate, just like we're just hoping for him to like come in and make some serious waves here. So I think they belong in this tier. I'm not going to fall into the trap last year. It's they got a lot of NBA guys on the roster. They're going to be better. I got Cody Martin pilled last season, and I smashed their over, and that turned out poorly. You're right about LaMelo. I think, would this be the order? So if we were to try to rank them within tiers, Wizards still at the bottom with the Nets. The Nets, the funniest synopsis I've seen of the Nets offseason is that they drafted 5 versions of this same player. And
well, yeah, I mean,
I
it's
love
hard to
Yegor
ignore
Demon.
that. Yeah, it's
But,
hard to ignore that. They went heavy on like, I mean, if you're trying to be really bad, making it very likely that you're going to have a rookie on the ball a lot is a great way to do it. And they kind of have set themselves up for that with their draft. So I think Charlotte, if we were really mini tiering this, which we will do as we move up, but like you could put Charlotte in its own above Brooklyn and Washington. But I think, you know, all 3 of these teams are more likely to lose to lose 60 games than they are to win 40. Like, you know what I mean? That's a confusing way to put it, but
I don't even, so if we assume, I don't even know what to make of the Nets. Like, they're really testing like the limits of Jordi Fernandez being a good coach when you kind of look like, if we assume Cam Thomas is going to be back, they have their primary on-ball guys are going to be Yegor Demon, Cam Thomas, and I guess Michael Porter Jr., who's not really an on-ball guy. At least you'll have plenty of information on the rookies. But man, that team, it almost felt like their read was, okay, we thought we were really bad last year. We weren't bad enough, and that's not happening this year because you don't want to fall behind in the tanking race. And they're interesting because they don't own their 2027 first-round pick. So, like, after next summer, they might try to hit the turbo button a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, framed another way, this is the year to be bad if they can do it, right? Like, because that 26 pick is when you got to cash in if you're going to cash in. And you can't, there's no payoff for being really bad a third time. So this is when it needs to bottom out, I think.
Ooh, we have a couple Hornets comments. I love this. Charlotte has some hope now, at least. Yeah, I think the Jeff Peterson-led front office is just, I don't know that they've gotten every move right, but it's like their direction. They're clearly playing the longer game. Starvel, I'm a biased Hornets fan, but I really feel like 30 wins is a more reasonable outcome with the moves they have made, at least a tier above
maybe
Brooklyn and Washington. Like, I think you could probably talk about, and maybe this is a team we'll get into as we're figuring out like I could see the Hornets being a little Raptors-y just because the Raptors have better top end talent, but their roster doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. So I could see them being like 2 teams that collide. But yeah, I think the Hornets' direction is fine. I think the one move I might quibble about the most that they've made with this front office was the Tijon Salon pick.
Right.
But well, like
even for him, he's so young. Like I think just like the eye test is scary and the numbers are awful, but like I just don't. Watching him play, I don't quite understand the theory of like what he's supposed to be. But I'm trying to be better about not just forming a judgment on a guy that's like played most of the year as a teenager. I think, or like he was one of the youngest players in that class. So it's like we're nowhere near knowing what he's going to be.
He might also benefit because I'm assuming that LaMelo Ball is going to benefit, like as a playmaker, even a scorer, is just having more shooting around him.
Yeah.
And that might be someone with Tijon Salon if you need to get him going downhill. Like, okay, now you have Colin Sexton, you have Con Knipple, you have Liam McNeely, excuse me. Like, you just have a bunch of dudes that are more versatile than last year, so we'll see how that pans out. But I like the Hornets' direction going into next season. I don't like. Could you win 30 games and be the 3rd worst team in the East? No, that's too high, right?
No, I think you could do it. Because look, like last year, so Washington won 18, Charlotte won 19, and then you jump all the way to the Sixers at 24,
all the way to 24.
but Brooklyn had 26. So yeah, you could definitely win 30. It'd be maybe a little bit unusual, and like 30 is a number that if you're headed towards that, you probably really try to nosedive to get make sure you don't hit 30. 25 is better than 30 lottery position wise, probably. But yeah, I think you could. I don't know. Like, I don't know what they want. I don't know if they want to win 30. You know what I mean? They've been so smart and delaying gratification that if they're on pace to be like the 10th seed, they might just shut it down. Like that wouldn't be a shock.
Jerry Lou says, if a healthy sophomore LaMelo led a less talented team to a positive record with Mason Plumlee, the starting center, don't sleep. Mason Plumlee might be their starting center again.
He's back.
So he's back. Charlotte can definitely get to 30. Health is your biggest issue. I mean, but it's a pretty big, when LaMelo's involved, it's a pretty look. If I don't know if any of these people thought like people should know how I feel about LaMelo Ball specifically. I think he is so underrated, and I would never move him, if not never, but like all the trade stuff, I'm holding on to him. I think the contract is fine. I think the player is great. But like we can't just ignore like this data with all the
Right.
like the lower body injuries.
Yeah.
Do you want to take us through the start of our next tier?
Yeah, I don't know where to go here. I'll start from what I guess is the bottom. Maybe I'll start from
Okay,
the top
Drake.
of start
Is that
start
a
from the
Drake
top.
song? Someone is it from the bottom. We start from the bottom. Is that a
Yeah,
Drake song? Okay, I think so. Yeah.
you should know that. You're younger. You should know that. I'm gonna go with the top of this next tier, and we will discuss the Miami Heat.
Ooh, yeah, the
You
D
just drag
tier
them up there.
for the Miami
mean,
Heat.
So I just want to sort of anchor myself here. So 37 and 45 last year. They had the Butler thing to deal with. I think we got a Tyler Hero breakout, which even at the end of it, everybody was kind of like, is Tyler Hero good though? Because of the targeting in the playoffs on defense and the like, how valuable is this type of player? I would say Hero is about as valuable as that player type can be. You just have
Like
to admit that
he's clearly separated himself from like the Jordan Pools and the RJ
Simons,
Barretts, like
yeah.
the Simons. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
All
I
those
agree.
guys
The
that were up
playmaking,
for
sure.
extensions around the same
Right.
time. He definitely, man, remember we used to just talk about those guys all together? There was somebody
did.
else in that group.
We had so many exercises that like preceding season of just like who would you rather have for the future?
Right.
Who gets more money in an extension?
Well, and the answer is him, right? I think
Right.
I think he's better than Poole. He's better than Simons. He's better than Barrett. So, but then it's like if he's your second best player, we saw where you top out at, and I think Bam, we learned too. He had a bad year just by his standards, but like I think we did get some confirmation that like if Bam is your best player, you are sometimes going to be a 37 and 45 team. Maybe you're going to be a 45 and 37 team, but you can't really get much above that. So this feels like a low tier given the teams that are just beneath it. But I'm just not seeing. Maybe make the case if you want. Like, what's the reason for Miami being significantly better than last year and not being in this tier?
I don't know. I mean, maybe Khalil Ware pops. Maybe Jaime Jaquez Jr. has sort of like a throwback to his rookie season, which is like an incredibly weird thing to say about anyone who's entering their third year.
Jovic could be better.
Their offense is the thing I grapple with because I liked the normal Powell trade for them, and he gives you some of the he should give you some. He's getting older. He'll give you some of the rim pressure you lost in Jimmy Butler. They still just don't have that primary on-ball guy. And like Tyler Hero, I think his improvement as a playmaker and making on-ball decisions is big. But like he's at his dangerous when he's the second guy that you need to create things and where he can fly around away from the ball. And like I think we've kind of seen that Bam can do some of that stuff, but the offensive numbers are just there. Over the past like 3 or 4 years when Jimmy Butler isn't on the floor, Miami's offense with Hero and Bam Adebayo has been underwhelmingly average.
Yeah.
And that's like their peak. So I think people can point to the Heat and say like they need that central star. And I think that's fair to say, but how do you get there without like, do they have who's the midseason name aside from Giannis, who it seems like everybody is waiting for? I don't even know if that type of player becomes available. It feels like they would need to be more in the territory of, oh, we're willing to pay Zach LaVine's contract, who I don't know if he's the answer, rather than, oh, they had the best offer for Giannis. Like they don't have, even if you put Hero on the table, they don't have that level of assets. And so I kind of understand, like Sean in the chat is saying Miami needs a reset, no chance otherwise. I'm not there yet, like because they have some flexibility moving forward. I was surprised they gave Davion Mitchell 2 guaranteed years, but like yeah, you could make that case pretty strongly and say like no, it's trade Hero, trade Bam, and it's time to start over.
I think all we know for sure is that when you have a player playing at the level that Jimmy Butler did for a couple of postseason runs, then Bam falls right into place where he ought to be, and Hero has his value, and like even guys like Duncan Robinson, who's not there anymore, but like he would have major value. But all of that, and the team's really good and dangerous, and nobody wants to play him. But all of that's predicated on you have a guy. I can't say like you have a Jimmy Butler. It's like you have the version of Jimmy Butler that we had to like really think hard about putting in like a top 5 players that you'd want to build a title contender around for like 2 full years. Like he was in that conversation. If he's not there, then the whole thing is just everybody is jumped up to a role that's like just slightly too big for what they can handle, like and be part of a really good team. So yeah, I think like I guess I'm not there on. I'm not ready to just like let's hit the red button type of thing. But it's like you said it. I don't see the way towards getting that next like peak Jimmy Butler type of guy because they won't have the best offer for the next version of that becomes available, and they're too good to get that guy in the draft, and they don't wait long enough. You know, they've had homegrown talent, but it's just like what they have left of that is not good enough without an imported like superstar above. They need a better player than they have. Like that's kind of the simple way.
And what's interesting is that I think they could have benefited from a gap year this coming season, where it's you don't just put Hero and Bam on a maintenance program and lose, and then maximize your draft pick, and then it's either a better trade asset or a better prospect to develop. I think the Norman Powell trade, again, I liked that trade for them, but I think that kind of signals no, they're not going to do that unless they think that they could reroute him for more value than they gave up. Jerry in the chat, and I want to clear up a misconception here that this is not Jerry specific. I've seen two big misconceptions, but he says, I think Miami is fine. I think next season is when they go for it. They'll have available cap space and will probably go for a superstar level player. The two biggest misconceptions I've seen this offseason is that the Nuggets have permanently escaped the second apron, which they have not. Like unless you think that Christian Brown and Peyton Watson are going to make less than $25 million combined next year, the Nuggets are going to have second apron concerns. And the Heat, their cap space is, if Andrew Wiggins picks up his player option, they're going to have like $12 or $13 million. So if they want cap space, you either need to hope that Wiggins opts out, which I guess isn't like, I don't know, 30 plus million at that, like it's on the border. Like if he could get more long-term money, but there will be more teams with cap space. So I don't think they're guaranteed to have cap space is my point. But I do think Jerry's right that this does seem like they're trying to set themselves up to go for it next summer, whether it's a trade. And I think honestly, you know what the big signal will be for me? Tyler Hero's extension eligible, I think October 1st. But if he signs an extension, he can't be traded this season because of the 6-month rule. So if he doesn't get an extension, because it's 3 years and 150 is the max, around there, he wouldn't have to get the max. But like if you don't look at extending him the way that we know how key players get extended now, that would be one where I'm like, oh, are they like, because we've seen a lot of stars get moved mid-season with like Fox and Luka, Anthony Davis, obviously in the same trade, and star level like Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. So if he doesn't get an extension, that's another thing I'll be clocking in Miami.
Yeah, that's a good thing to keep an eye on. Let's go to another team in this tier here. I guess we'll just go in reverse order again. So this is where I have the Pacers. Are you on board
front
with
of the Heat?
Pacer? No, they were actually behind the Heat. The Heat are the
You're
top
not a
team in
J-Huff
this
guy?
tier. Well, you know I am a J-Huff guy. First of all, how dare you? I just, I don't know how much we need to talk about this. Like, you've lost 2 of your 3 best players, one via trade, one via injury, and that's just impossible to overcome. I think they'll still play like a exciting brand of basketball that's fun to watch. The offense should be interesting. Like I don't know how sort of diluted it might be without Halliburton and without Turner spacing. But like they're not going to tank, I don't think, although they did get that pick back, right? So like that's on the table.
Man, what a rough just series of events for the Pelicans this offseason. Like,
Man. That might have been a choice pick to have, and it was like just the value was like cut by 85% like in like a week or two after they pulled that trade off. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the Pacers?
That was right. Jalen Green was the other one as Rohit. Rohit, apologies for mispronouncing. I think you're probably right to. I don't know. They're so deep, but I'm just like Tyrese Halliburton felt like kind of the piece that ties it all together to where okay, you can survive stretches without him, but an entire season. The thing that's iffy for me. So if you're looking at the Heat or the Pacers, let's say like next season starts off or they get to December or whatever, and they're not doing well. Which organization is more likely to kind of throw in the towel?
Well, probably Miami. Well, that's a good question. I mean, probably Miami, right? Like just because we're talking about they don't have the guy. The teardown is like a when, not an if. So maybe they're the ones that just pull the ripcord. But the Pacers,
that's right.
The Pacers could capitalize though and just be like, we're gonna look. Like the Fates destroyed us, and then we cheaped out and further destroyed ourselves. We might as well see what we can get out of this pick. I don't know.
I think it would be smart for either of them to do so, but Indy's entire ethos, and I don't know if this is from Kevin Pritchard or from Herb Simons, is just like we don't tank.
Right.
And so I think Miami's the right answer, even though Pat Riley doesn't rebuild. But like he feels like someone who would stomach sort of like a tough, tighter temporary window, and the Pacers just feel like the goal is to chug along. But I mean, if we're being honest for both of those teams, the answer is because look at where they are. If you want to say they belong up a tier, okay, cool. Like,
Hmm.
congratulations, you're still in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference. Like at least one of them, I think, is going to end up going through a gap year, even if they don't hit that button until it's late.
Right. It could be an unintentional gap year, which is not the kind you want. Like, because that's just like, well, we turns out
And
we weren't so good. We didn't plan for this.
if Indy goes for it the entire year, though, like I just what is their ceiling? I know we have them in this tier, and I'd probably agree. You could quibble over whether they belong in front of Miami or not,
Yeah, sure.
but I'm just looking at like you really need. If I wanted to believe that they were still like a 45 win team or something without Tyrese Halliburton, like I'm trying to think of what needs to happen, and I'm like, well, the center position is murky now. Like there's just
Yeah.
all there's. It feels like there's going to be too much James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson, Jay Huff for me to feel completely comfortable there. But like, is it Benedict Mathurin pops because he's getting all these additional sort of on ball? I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing. If you really want to be optimistic, you can say, man, there's a lot of room for Matherin, for Walker, for, I don't know, even Toppin, like guy like Nemhard to just explore the space, right? Like they're going to, by default, they're going to have just bigger roles. And Matherin kind of stands out as a guy that might really have a bigger role, especially offensively. So, like, if those guys all get better, yeah, 45, maybe. I mean, they only won 50 last year. The playoff run, it's easy to forget, was just like, I don't know, I kept picking against them every round. Like, just,
Well, they were on a tear from like basically December. Like when Andrew Nemhard came back, they
yeah.
were like the fifth best team in the NBA or whatever.
Well, isn't that another thing to consider? Is like, I don't know what the record was. Were they 10-14 or something at one point, and Halliburton wasn't looking good, and the narrative was so easy of like, yeah, lightning in a bottle last postseason. This is actually the real Halliburton. You know, though that turned out to be wrong, but that stretch did prove that like if Halliburton's not great, the Pacers aren't good. Like, so I mean, he's not going to be there at all. So I don't know how you recover from that, even if you do get like steps forward from a bunch of guys.
This is like, because I'm looking at the team that I want to talk about next. This is
Mhm.
like the impossible tier to where I
Yeah.
think that you could talk me into like these teams bottoming out or skyrocketing. So I'm going to talk about the Toronto Raptors, who I want to see if you agree. I would put them in front of both of these teams.
I mean, they
I
certainly
feel veto
have.
coming on.
I'm not ready to veto. They're in this tier for me, so I can't. It's hard for me to. Well, maybe make your case, and I'm going to see if there's any particular parts that stand out as veto worthy.
I think that we're over. I think that we're overthinking the whole. This is becoming very. There's only one Bally for me,
Okay.
and I don't think that there's a limit to how many like net positive on ball decision makers you could have. And while the spacing isn't great, having good on ball decision makers can counter that. I also think two things are being underrated for them on offense. Maybe actually three. This is probably the biggest question. Emmanuel Quickly has not been healthy since he got there. He's one of just the best when you in terms of off the dribble and off the ball 3-point shooting. He blends that as good as anyone in the league, basically. I mean, not Steph Curry tier, obviously.
Sure.
Darko Rajakovic, very creative with his offense. And the way that they've used RJ Barrett since he got there, I think they can figure out ways to maximize what will be confined spacing. And then the other big thing is Brandon Ingram did a better job last year with his 3-point volume in New Orleans. I don't think that, and we've seen him have better seasons, like in terms of volume from 3-point range. I don't think he's going to be shooting like 5 corner threes a game and just camping out there or anything. But I really believe that when you have like Toronto's level of decision makers, when you look at specifically Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram, that's a really good start. There's with Jakob Pertl there, yeah, maybe you'd want more of a spacing center, but like there's a lot of IQ and good screening there. And then you do have Grady Dick, you do have Jamison Battle. Like now the Colin Murray Boyles thing of it all is I just don't expect him necessarily to play a huge role, at least not with the
Hmm.
core lineup. So you need to make sure there's enough shooting. Like that's certainly a concern. But there's enough younger players that I think you could say, like Scotty Barnes could still get. This feels like not make or break, but a very telltale year for Scotty
Yeah.
Barnes. And I'm sort of betting on they're going to be the team that will continue going for it, I guess, longer than Miami or Indiana, where it feels like their floor can come out from under them. So it might be a spicy pick, but I think I'm in love with a lot of the Raptors as individual players. And I think that we're kind of overthinking, well, they're definitely going to be less than the sum of their parts.
I think that's all fair. And I think just as you go through, here's what I run up against is one, we haven't seen their main guys together just because Ingram didn't play. Quickly's been hurt. So that's sort of a sticking point for me. I think you have to acknowledge that, like, if you just go down the starting five and say it's a Quickly, Barrett, Ingram, Barnes, Pirtle, like those are 5 NBA starters. Like, you know, I don't know where you'd rank them, but they're all like, they're pretty good. And then like we like Agbaji. We think Grady Dick's got something. Maybe Walter pops. Like there's if Chris Boucher's back, we have to move him up a tier. First of all,
They go to S tier, I think. Honestly, I was going to move them down to F because that contract's not done yet. What's going on?
Right. So like, I definitely, you can't deny that there is like a fair amount of, like, they got a lot of guys that if we're letter grading, like Quickly's like a B minus, you know, and like Ingram's maybe a B, and Barnes is like a B plus so there's a lot of B range guys. The sticking point for me, or the other sticking point, is just like the fit and like, how does this actually work functionally on offense? Defense, like, okay, I think they should be fairly solid, but like, it feels like the kind of logic you'd use when you're putting together like a dream team. And it's like, you can't just put a bunch of guys that are good. You have to like actually think about who fits, or at least, I mean, that doesn't always happen, but you know what I mean? It's like an all-star team versus an Olympic team. I want to see it. I do think it's fair though, because we like, just on a talent basis, like I don't think Miami or Indy has like as many like, oh, that guy's a very good starter type players as maybe Toronto does. I'm just hung up on, I'm not using a veto as the short answer here, but I got some hangups.
I'm dying at this comment. I'm willing to put my life savings on the Raptors being better than both the Heat and Pacers next year, as long as they're relatively healthy. I'm not willing to do that. Because I'm now wondering if I'm miscalculating the whole Masai Ujiri leaving. Does that make the front office more likely to, not that they would start over, but like, are we going to see RJ and Ingram get, I mean, they love they're obsessed. They're obsessed with Jakob Poeltl, so he's not going anywhere. And if he does, they'll probably just reacquire him in about a year. So I guess I wonder if I'm underweighting that, which makes me, but I also don't trust the Heat or the Pacers enough, especially when Miami is so, like, we know the Pacers won't have their best player all year. And then Miami is just, everything there just feels like a placeholder, maybe except for Bam. So I could probably be talked into, like, would you put the Raptors at the bottom of the, like, or we're not done with this tier yet, but would you put them at the bottom of this tier?
No, there's the next team we'll talk about, I think, is pretty firmly at the bottom for me, just because the ceiling isn't what any of these any of these 3 teams have. But actually, you know, you've kind of talked me into it. I do think, like, I think maybe the floor is it fair to say that Toronto's floor might be higher than, you know, because we talked about, like, both the Pacers and Heat are fairly good candidates to just like, oh, we're going to steer into the skid if things go sideways. Like Toronto, I think, like, what win total barring injuries, like up and down the roster, would you say, like, they're going to win at least X? Like, Toronto's not going to be a 22 win team. Like, there's no way. Like,
it feels like
if everybody's healthy, it's in the high 30s.
Right. I was going to say 37 feels like their floor if everybody's healthy.
I think that's
right. And with the Heat, I could see theirs being lower. And the Pacers, it's just the not having Tyrese Halliburton of it all. I don't know what to make of that. But I also, I'm starting to talk myself out. I'm going to leave it there because I do believe, but they're one of the teams, it's them, the Pelicans, and the Hornets that I'm always just higher on than consensus, apparently. So I'm wondering if I'm doing it again. Like, because we could see the Heat and the Pacers throwing it in, but the Raptors won't. Why wouldn't the Raptors do that?
Because the Raptors have like 50 guys on long-term contracts. There's just like, what does throwing it in look like? And they're not all positive value necessarily. I think we would agree that like the team construction, I like the team construction a little bit less than just in terms of like the money and the years that they've given some of these guys. That concerns me more than like, how good is this team going to be this year? You know, like long-term, I don't love, like, other than Barnes, like where's the foundation here? I think that's fine there, and then we should definitely. Hey, we'll see. Manifesting Bucks making it to the B tier.
Friend of the podcast, Eurostep Podcast Network. Manifesting Bucks up to the B tier. Let's see how that goes. We're coming up.
Well, there's only one. There's one more team in this tier, and it does start with a B, but it is the Bulls. And
bottom.
Bottom. Same story as always. Like, just unambitious. Have we talked about the new deals for Karnisovas or Karnisovas? I never pronounce it right. And Billy Donovan as just like ownership saying like surveying the last few years and be like, fellas, just keep it up. This is exactly like great job. No notes.
Was your read on it? The Billy Donovan one, I'm just sort of like, I don't know that he's done anything wrong there. And who is like, you might say if they were rebuilding, go hire a first timer. But I had more of a problem with the AK extension because if you're not going to announce it, look what happened with, I know it took a while for it to come out, but like there was pomp and circumstance for Kobe Altman getting a deal with the Cavaliers. Right. So they're clearly embarrassed or at least aware of what the sentiments are going to be from the fan base and analysts. And so it's, you hit it. Like, it's just, if you're doing that, maybe it's time to take a step back, reflect, internalize some of the stuff that's happening. But this organization's never going to, because I thought about like, well, why aren't they just in the F tier? Because it's, you know why they're not in the F tier? Because they're not going to trade Kobe White. Right. They're not going to trade Vooch because they're not that kind of fucking team. They don't think that way.
Right. They have the narrowest band of outcomes, I think, of any team we're going to talk about. Unless it's like we get all the way to the top and it's like, well, the Cavs will win between 57 and 63 games or something. Like that's pretty narrow. But like the Bulls are going to be in the high 30s to low 40s. And I just see no way that they, I mean, injury, sure, the low end, whatever. But like the ceiling is just 44, like, which is just where it's always been, and we hate it. And I just don't understand how, as an ownership group, you'd say like this again, more of this. This is what we want. Like, we want a play-in loss and everybody to just like be mad because we picked 12th again. It's just, who wants this?
I almost want, this is one of those situations where I would welcome being wrong, because if they traded Kobe White and Vucevic, like, they're probably the worst team in the East at that point. I know they would still have Josh Giddey, assuming he restarts, but they're probably the worst team in the East. Like, it's not Brooklyn, it's not Washington, it's not Charlotte. I would think it would be Chicago, no?
They would definitely be in the bottom tier. I don't think there'd be any argument for them to be where they are now.
I was going to ask you the Josh Giddey situation, though. Do you think that's because they just gave Patrick Williams 5 years, $90 million a player option? That deal was not out there for, like, even a 4-year deal. Like, that at that level was not out there for him. Do you think that could be a signal, along with, okay, they did finally move on from Zach LaVine? Could that be a signal that maybe they are thinking, being more forward-thinking to where, oh, they looked at the market, where's Josh Giddey getting money from? We're going to squeeze him? Or are you just sort of, we need to see the number before we go talking about the Bulls as having forethought?
Yeah, well, that probably should be the reaction. I think, like, I don't know, it's like a fool me once thing. Like, they have to be aware of the heat that the Patrick Williams contract, sent towards them. I mean, I think I need to see the number still, because if we wait all this time and Giddey gets 30 a year, which seems like impossible, but if that's what happens, then we'll have to. I'll reserve judgment until then.
Eurostep AK extension might be the worst transaction of the summer. Maybe wasn't the extension like 2 years ago or something that we found out like after the fact? Grant, this one's for you. From Rohit, how about a double sign and trade Giddey for Kuminga? Who says no? I feel like this is a personal attack.
I say no. It's not worth it. I think because the Warriors have to. I'm pretty sure if the Warriors don't do some other stuff and they do execute a sign and trade, they're going to get hard capped and not be able to take on Al Horford into the mid level, I think, or something weird like that happens. So I've pivoted a little bit on my Kuminga sign and trade desires.
I'm going to tell you why the Warriors say no, because it would involve doing anything whatsoever, and they're clearly just not going to do that.
They're just sitting there waiting, and just like waiting for Kuminga's reps to call like once a week, and they ask like, "So you get an offer sheet yet?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "Cool. Well, check back in later. See what happens."
Spicy question from OK. Kendrick Perkins or Drake Powell?
Gosh. Well, I don't know a lot about Drake Powell. I'm gonna go Drake Powell.
I hope people at least get that bit. Do you want to take us? What tier are we at? We're done with this tier, right?
We're out of the D tier. We've moved on. It only gets trickier to me, I feel like. All right, I'm going to start. Oh, I think we'll disagree on this, although I'm not anchored to the order within the tiers, but I would like to discuss the Detroit Pistons, please. They're in this tier.
Ooh, okay. I need to I don't know what I want to use my veto on. You haven't used yours yet either. This is the tension is mounting, everybody.
Well, do we have to use our veto? Like, can't we just get along?
Oh, I'm using my veto, even if it's just to spite you. I'm definitely
Okay,
using my
great.
veto.
I do like a spite veto. Okay, Dan, are the Pistons any better this year than last year? If you exclude the organic growth and just really, it's a question about you swap more or less Simone Fontecchio for Duncan Robinson. Jaden Ivey is healthy, and what they did something else. Oh, Paul Reed is back. And Karis LeVert, who, if Jaden Ivey is healthy, I'm not sure how much utility Karis LeVert has. He has some. Is this a better team? And if so, to what degree? And again, they blew expectations away last year, obviously. So keep that in mind.
I actually think, and this is easier to say after the season Fontecchio just had, I think Duncan Robinson's a noticeable upgrade from that spot. He's shown the ability to do some stuff inside the arc. I think the movement shooting is a lot better. And just as when you knew that Malik Beasley wasn't coming back or he's dealing with those off the court issues, I think you kind of there's a chance that you come out as a net even while losing what was one of the three most valuable floor spacers in the league last year or whatever. So that's a big deal to me. The question of if they're better, it comes down to internal improvement for me. I'm probably a little bit higher on the Karis LeVert acquisition than you. I think he's shown more as an off-ball guy and even defender. And I think the way that JB Bickerstaff just is able to coax defense out of guys, it wouldn't we saw it with Karis LeVert in Cleveland actually under him. That would give me hope. So I think, I don't think that they're a lot better. If they're going to get a lot better, it's because Cade Cunningham got better, Asar Thompson, Ron Hollins had some at least opening summer league had some nasty moments. So I think you could say that they will get better, but they didn't do anything, I guess, that would justify saying, hey, they're going to be a 49-win team or something next year. But that's also, in some ways, isn't that encouraging? They didn't do anything that would suggest they read too much into what happened last season.
Well, that's a great point. And they didn't. I mean, Beasley sort of not being bring backable, it made this a little easier, but they didn't bend over backwards. We have to make sure Schroeder comes back. Well, how do we pull that off? They didn't freak out about Hardaway Jr. They're just yeah, we have between Ivy coming back and getting LeVert, there's enough secondary ball handling. We're going to be fine. So I do think that's a fair point that you see teams in this position swing a little bigger, because especially teams that had been in the wilderness like Detroit had for so long, and then they get this very strong playoff showing relative to expectations, and Cade Cunningham kind of all boxes checked as far as reasonable and slightly above reasonable expectations, and then they swing big. So I do think it's somewhat encouraging that they didn't do that. I think to answer my own question, if the Pistons are better, and based on how I have it, they were the 6th seed last year. I think I have them ranked 5th in the East right now if we're actually ranking. I think I think they are going to be a little better, but it's just because of the young guys they have will improve. It's not so it has less to do with LeVert and that kind of thing.
What do you view as because it's not Cade will get better, but he's not a swing piece. You made the All-NBA league. He's not a
right.
Who is the swing? Is it Asar? Is it Ron Holland? Is it Jaden Ivey? Who is it? Because it's probably not Jalen Duren, but who is the swing piece for them this year?
I think it, because to say it's Asar would be to say well, he's going to become a good 3-point shooter or something and I just don't see that happening this year. I think he's just going to be great at what he's great at and will for a while just be limited otherwise. Is it crazy to say Ivy? Because he before he got hurt, he only played 30 games, I think it was, but made 40% of his threes. We're sort of, we talked about him a fair amount. He's not the ideal Cunningham complement, but it's getting closer just because the shot was falling, and you can use him to run second, all that stuff we've talked about with him forever. If he's that guy or slightly better, maybe it's him, because I don't know. I don't look at anybody else really and say Ron Holland becomes a 30-minute a game guy. That's not happening yet either, I don't think.
The next team, so I would put them below the Pistons in the Celtics. There's a chance that they could still be really good, but the big man rotation is meh at the moment. It seems like they might be open to making more trades that would slash their payroll, and so it feels like Anthony Simons won't finish the season in Boston, especially as an expiring, and especially if they seem like the team. Now, if I'm Dame, what I would do is I would wait, because your bird rights will still, if you sign in like in March versus signing now, your bird rights, you'll still get the early bird rights stuff by being on a team for 2 years. So I'm going to wait and survey the league. If there's a chance he's coming back and maybe the Celtics aren't going to play late into the season, I think they're going to get Dame, though. And then so like that kind of diminishes the long-term value of having Simons. And so I think they're going to make more moves and then shut, because this is an organization that does operate with forethought, especially with Brad Stevens installed there. I think that they're going to have a true gap year. It's not going to be on the level of trying to be as bad as the Nets or the Jazz, but they're going to see the opportunity because they have their own first-round pick this year. They're going to see the value in doing that. And so I think that we're going to see, if they're not traded, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, like those guys are going to get shut down at some point. And so even putting them in C, I thought about putting them in the D tier, but that's just, they have, if those guys are going to play at all, like they're still just kind of too good to be there, I think.
Yeah, I think you could make, I was trying to sort of figure out where I thought the Celtics rated, just say relative to the Pistons, for example, or even Toronto, just on like a talent basis, right? Because you're subtracting Tatum, you're subtracting Holiday, you're subtracting Horford, you're subtracting Porzingis. Like, that's a lot going out the door. I still think between like Brown and White and Pritchard and Simons for as long as he's there, like the big man rotation is really bad. So somebody, yeah, Rohit was pointing out, like it might be the worst big man rotation in the league. Like not an exaggeration based on what's there right now. I actually think like, even if you believe, okay, it's about equal with a team like the Pistons, which I think that's a debate, that what you said about like, I mean, what is Boston playing for? And the answer is like not a lot this year. The odds of them kind of turning the tank on are just higher than they would be for most of the teams we've mentioned so far. So I think it's fair to put them below the Pistons.
I also think like, given just the level of stuff Jaylen Brown's dealt with, especially in his lower body, like take the opportunity to have this guy go through only a partial season, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, he's had plenty of long postseasons for sure. Yeah, and that's another factor. Okay, we got to add a team to this tier. I want to save this team to talk about last. Let's go. Let's throw the Bucks up. How about that?
You better. So I'm letting you know that I'm using a veto on one of these two teams that are talking, because I'm curious as to why you have the Bucks. I'm assuming at the top of the C tier relative to the teams we've already talked about.
I actually have them third in this tier.
Oh, you're gonna have so. Can I actually? My question to you before you start: how do you have them that low unless you're under the assumption that Giannis isn't finishing the season there?
I think that Giannis and Turner is a great front court combo, and I don't like almost anything else about the team. Like, I mean, it's great that they got back some of the guys they got back, but Kuzma is not a winning player to me. I don't know. Like, make the case. Like, who do you like so much beyond those two that you would have? I assume you have the Bucks in a tier higher.
I thought about bumping them up a tier higher. I don't want to use I'd rather use my veto on the next team, who I'm a lot higher on than you, but I didn't realize that they were going to be at the bottom of this tier. Look, my whole thing is the stuff with Giannis's playmaking last year was kind of terrifying, like for other teams, and that might have been like the biggest selling point of him coming back. Is look, we're still going to have floor spacing bigs around you, and now you're going to be on the ball more. I think there'll be limitations then on maybe their crunch time offense in the half court. Sure, you can talk about like, do they have enough other shooting around him? I love Ryan Rollins. Getting Gary Trent Jr., Gary Harris, and Taurean Prince, two of those guys were there last year back, I think it's a really big deal. I really like AJ Green. Like, I think there's more shooting here than people are crediting. And just given the way, like, we saw some Rollins, Giannis, Turner, even if you think Giannis and Turner have taken steps back defensively, that's like a pretty good defensive group. And then you have like AJ Green's not terrible there. Taurean Prince was solid. Gary Trent Jr. will disrupt. They are very predicated on remaining healthy. I do not trust Kyle Kuzma even a little bit. So I'm with you on, is he a winning player? Man, I can't put them behind Boston. I'm hoping we can come to a compromise that doesn't require a veto here.
I don't have them behind Boston. I have Boston last in this tier.
Okay, sorry.
Just full disclosure. No, I take your point. I think like the simplified version is like Giannis is still pretty much in his prime, and there maybe like without Dame there, he just has his best offensive season ever. Like that's possible. I think the likelier outcome is like all these young, mostly unproven guards are not any good. The Bucks get too easy to stop because it's just Giannis and spacing, which is like a good recipe, and that's kind of what you have to do with him. But I don't know. It feels maybe what I'm like doing here is sort of like letting postseason concerns like trickle in. Because if Giannis is healthy and the shooting really does play, this should be a pretty good regular season team. But they won 48 last year. That feels about right to me. And then you're pricing in like if Turner gets hurt, what happens? If Giannis gets hurt, this is one of the worst teams in the league, like full stop. So
well, yeah, Pete asks, how bad is the Bucks roster if Giannis leaves?
Oh, it's awful.
The limit does not exist, I mean, right?
Yeah, but there's also Cole Anthony. I didn't mention him. Thank you. That's is that official yet? I don't know if it is.
Yeah, he only gave back $2 million. Like Memphis's offseason is just all sorts of icky.
Yeah.
Like we needed to get rid of Jay Huff so we could bring in Jocelyn. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm gonna spoiler alert. I'll be smashing their under.
That means they're going hard over everybody.
So the Bucks behind the Pistons. It's weird because I could see the Bucks having a much higher ceiling, but when you're trying to cake in the floor of it all, even with I'm assuming Giannis just finishes the season in Milwaukee.
I think so too. I also think like this is going to be his age 31 season. He's an athleticism based player. Like it slows down at some point. I think maybe I'm pricing that in too. There's one more team in this tier for me.
No, they're not going to be in this tier. I'm going to tell you right now.
You're going to be.
Where do you have them? The Atlanta Hawks. Where do you have them in this tier?
They are first in this tier for me.
Okay, so I am putting them in the A tier and using my veto. They've been bumped up, so we can save.
You
to
bumped
talk
them up
about
2
them.
tiers.
Well, I didn't bump them. I had them in the A tier.
You had them in 2 tiers. Okay.
You're being forced to bump them up.
Wow.
So, do you want to talk about them when we get to the A tier? Then we can move on to the next tier.
Yeah, I guess we better. Sure.
So, do you want to start us off with the B tier?
Okay, so let's see. I have one team in this tier, and it is the Philadelphia 76ers. And it is because this is where I landed after a lot of wrestling with upside and downside and floor and ceiling and injury risks. And actually, I put them here before the Paul George report about an arthroscopic knee surgery dropped. Was it yesterday? I don't know how much that changes anything. It's just like further evidence of why they're hard to rank. I just think they belong in their own tier. There's not going to be anybody else here with them. And I don't know how you acknowledge like just Paul George and they can be in their own for sure. Question mark. Like I don't know. Like if Embiid, like I don't think Embiid is gonna play a lot of games this year. Dan, does that feel like a controversial thing to say? I think he's gonna miss more than half the season. Why do you have them all the way in the B tier? Because what if he does? Because what if he does? Then they're gonna be really good. Same with Paul George. Like they still have Maxey, and we like McCain, and Grimes will be back. Like there's real players on this team. I don't know what to do with them.
Oh, thank everybody for the chat. Euro 76ers above Bucks when the medical staff may treat VJ's brain with amputation.
Who needs you only have 2 thumbs. You don't need both. Like, what's the deal?
Those were 2 all-time comments back to
What
back.
do you think about the Sixers? Like, should we
can I frame a
exclude
question?
them?
I was actually, are they even like an NBA?
They don't get to be in this ranking.
Look, if they had signed Quentin Grimes, I'd put them in the S tier, but he's still unsigned, so I don't know what to do with him. But my question to you was actually going to compare them to the Bucks, because I would have had the Bucks in this tier had I used my veto for them. Who has, we're assuming Giannis stays in Milwaukee, who has the lower floor, Milwaukee or Philadelphia?
Obviously Philadelphia.
Then
right?
It's just, I would be flip-flopping Milwaukee and Philly if it was me, just because the Embiid stuff is, it's not like, well, what if he is healthy? It's like we're at the Zion point of like, no, you just pencil him in for missing 30 games or something.
That's fair. I think, and if it were just him, I don't know, this cuts both ways, because it's like, well, it's him and it's Paul George. Like they what if they're both healthy? Which again, it's like you can't just it's not a coin flip situation anymore where it's like maybe yes, maybe no, it's a 50-50. It's like, I don't know, 75% chance that Embiid and George both miss a ton of time. So maybe that is what we should be focused on here. I'm not going to veto myself just because I do think the Sixers have to be in their own tier just because they're so.
There's like, well,
I don't know what to do with them.
Which team? So then you could say, okay, if you think Milwaukee has the higher floor, like which team do you think is more likely to actualize its best case outcome? It's funny. We're getting questions in the chat of how Philly is above Milwaukee. We're attempting to answer that right now, everybody. I promise.
Yeah,
like,
and
that's
it's not
the
easy.
discussion around it.
I think like. Okay, so wait, say that one more time because I do think that's a key distinction.
So we
here.
established, and I would agree that Philly has the lower floor, and this is again assuming Giannis does not get traded. Which team, if you're factoring in their best case outcomes, I think you could agree that Philly has a better best case outcome when you're looking at the talent. Which team is more likely to actualize its best? Like which team's outcome best case is more reachable?
I mean, so obviously implicit in the question is we have to acknowledge that the Sixers' likelihood of hitting their best case outcome is low, like very low because of Embiid's health record and George's. And then the argument you're making is that the Bucks' likelihood of hitting their best case outcome is higher, right? Which I think I agree with, but maybe where I'd land is even if the Sixers' odds of hitting like a 100th percentile outcome are lower than the Bucks, the Sixers' 100th percentile outcome is way higher than the Bucks' like best possible outcome. It's just like maybe it's a 5% chance they hit that. I mean, it's probably lower than that, and the Bucks are 10 or 12 or so, whatever. Like I think that's how I like make it make sense in my brain. But it still just is ignoring the fact that like the Sixers are highly unlikely to maximize this roster. But if they do, then they're as good as like literally anybody. But they just aren't going to do that. So I don't know. That's kind of why I just have to have them in my own tier because
I think you're saying a 1% chance at being the NBA champion is better than like a 50% chance of being the third best team in the East. That doesn't.
Which is exactly how Daryl Morey thinks of building a team too. So I accidentally kind of got a groupthink disease with him.
I have a question that I don't really know. It doesn't impact tiers at all. What's more likely? Joel Embiid plays in 50 or more games, or Giannis gets traded before the end of next season?
Giannis gets traded.
And yeah, Philly's still the tier higher. That's incredible.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think even if Embiid is like pretty healthy, they're just going to rest him for 25, right?
I am sort of wondering how, because I like the VJ Edgecombe pick for them, but I'm curious as to what type of role he plays and what does it mean? Because when you look at just, like, unless you think Paul George can still do it, like, who is just defending, like, the true wings on this roster? And if you're leaning on a rookie, like, it feels like the Bucks, even though they might have the lower ceiling, they have fewer unknown commodities. And I know, like, okay, Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins aren't the most known like NBA players, but like we have more of a track record of, okay, VJ Edgecombe's going to need to go out there and defend every other team's best wing player, unless you think that can Quentin Grimes do that? Like it's just, and then the backup big situation is just because if Embiid's out, like I like a Dembona, but like the Andre Drummond experience is just, how is this team going to rebound? Like, so if they're, and okay, put Andre Drummond on the floor, and then I'm going to ask, well, how are they going to defend and score? So I have more questions about the Sixers, which is weird because everyone paints the Bucks as doom and gloom, and I think long term they have more, like they just have that huge Damian Lillard dead money cap hit now, so there's more challenges even with Embiid and George on Philly's books. Although maybe they end up getting waived and stretch. But I see your case because there's still that like the Bucks don't have the like what if Middleton and Dame and Giannis all remain healthy next, like they don't have that prospect anymore. The Sixers in theory still do, and we haven't talked a lot like Jared McCain, if he's healthy, getting better. What if Quentin Grimes gets better? What if Tyrese Maxey's young enough to continue getting better? So they have that going for them as well.
Yeah, no, I think, well, we need to get to this next team because, okay, so yeah, we have the Sixers are in one tier. So we skip up to the A tier where we've already had the Hawks via veto. Again, not mad at it. I get it. I'll wait for you to make the case. I have the Magic in that Hawks tier. That's initially
in
I also
front of the Hawks. That is shocking.
Do it? Well, I guess I have to since I have them a whole tier higher. Initially, I had the Magic here in their own tier as well because I just like one team tiers. I mean, the Magic's a pretty simple case, right? Like 141 last year. I want to make sure. I think I've said that several times, but I want to make sure that's right. Yeah, great defense, terrible offense. Added Desmond Bane, should get better health from Banchero and Franz. Like
Jalen Suggs, maybe even
this is
Mo
a
Wagner.
50. Yeah, I always forget Suggs. This is a 50-win team. Like unless something goes very sideways, and maybe there's some upside from there. I just like they're a very comfortable, like just sub elite team for me.
Yeah, they're in the right spot. I think if I didn't already use my veto, I might even nudge them up to S tier because I think the addition of Tyus Jones is going to do wonders for their offense as well. And Paolo Banchero, it's not just about him getting better, but it's Paolo Banchero with floor spacing now around a little bit more floor spacing. I think they probably still have, unless Franz Wagner is going to remember how to make 3-pointers. I think that they probably still have some spacing questions with this team. But the defense was incredible last year. You're not going to get maybe during Tyus Jones's minutes, maybe you get a little worse then, but like Desmond Bane's not going to hurt your defense like at all.
No.
Like and all the value they lost to injury last year is like their top 3 players all missed a significant portion of the season. And even if you say one of them that happens again, I think short of it being Banchero, they'll just be built to weather it. So they're in the right spot, and I would say that you need to make the case for them. We would need to make the case for them to be higher before it's what does it take for them to even drop down to a Sixers, Pistons, Bucks level? Right.
Yeah, I mean it would just injuries. Like I think that's the only way. They were second in defense and 26th on offense last year. They're a top 5 defense. I don't know if they'll be 2 just because like Houston and there's plenty. That's the difference between 5th and 2nd is not that big a deal. They'll be a top 5 defense unless something crazy happens. And then like they're 26th in offense last year. If you're 17th, like that's like what a massive leap that is, and that's such a low bar. Like I really do think at some point, since there's like at least decent spacing now, and if Paolo's as good as we both think he is, like you need to be a top half of the league offense probably, which is total like they're not going to be 5th or 10th or whatever, but like they should be significantly better on offense, and the defense is not going anywhere. So that's an easy 50 wins.
Rohit, the Paolo is better than Tatum narrative going to hit like crack in November. I hadn't considered that, but I do think when players are injured or we haven't seen them for a while, we kind of forget. And so I could honestly see like that'll be I could see that becoming a talking point at some stage of the season.
I'm not comfortable with Jason Tatum just catching comparative strays while he's hurt. Leave him
alone.
I'm not.
I wouldn't subscribe to it, but I could see that happening because we just have a way of forgetting about players when we haven't seen. Like, look at what the NBA discourse turns into like by August. So when you haven't seen like the veterans play, what do you think that Orlando will have? It has not had a league average or better offense since Dwight Howard was on the team. Do you think that the trend gets bucked this year?
That's a big jump. I wish I should look up like what the biggest year-over-year offensive jumps are. So they got to be top half of the league in offense.
Which sounds like such a low bar to clear,
it's
but
such a low bar
for this franchise, it's not.
So this is one of the reasons I didn't have the Magic up in the tier with the next 2 teams. It's top 2. Is I think Jamal Mosley, like this is going to be the referendum on Jamal Mosley as a coach. I think like, is he going to be the guy? Because got the defense going. That's great. That's like one of the hardest things to do. But I don't know how like there's the lack of spacing excuse is kind of mitigated / maybe removed now. And so like what is he as an offensive coach? Like what kind of stuff is he going to put in? So I'm hemming and hawing because like I think the talent is there for them to be a better than average offense. So, 10th to 15th or whatever. I just don't know yet if Mosley and his staff are good enough offensively to like get out of the talent what could be gotten out of it. So I'll say they will not. But they'll be right in that range because 26th to like 14th or 15th would be in like a massive jump. So I'll say they'll be like 16, 17, something like that.
I'm going to say they finish in the top 14. I think they get there. I'm that high on Banchero, and I think the Desmond Bain acquisition is going to be massive for them.
Franz is going to make a shot at some point too, so that will help.
And like the other thing too is like if they run a little bit more with Desmond Bain or just having a better decision maker in Tyus Jones, their defense is so good, it will allow them the opportunity to go up against more scrambled defenses at the other end, which could inflate. Like that's how like the Houston or the Memphis MO type deal.
But that low-hanging fruit's been there forever, and they just haven't picked it. And so that's the one other reason that Mosley like gives me some pause. As like, is he like, I don't know. He's not Kenny Atkinson. We'll leave it there.
Yeah, as even Jordy Fernandez when it comes to offense. Right?
Few are.
All right, make your case for the Hawks in the A tier. Go.
Yeah, I look, the Sixers being in their own tier screwed this up. I think Orlando's better, but I can see the argument for Atlanta belonging here. I just thought it felt more at home to me with the Detroit, Milwaukee, Boston crowd. So I think, look, I mean, I'm sure you can make the case like their starters we like a lot. Didn't really see him much last year because Johnson was hurt so much. And then we like Kennard. We like Porzingis. I mean, who knows? And then who's the third guy that they got in the back?
Walker.
Oh my God, what am I doing? I love Nas so much. Yeah, make the case. They're a really good team. Maybe I should add them higher.
You could kind of see that they were going in this direction. It felt like last year, where you saw the vision of what they were trying to do around Trae Young, with a bunch of just like rangy, different defensive types, like more size around him. Adding Nickeil Alexander-Walker to having Dyson Daniels to even Jalen Johnson, who's at least super portable, Zachary Risache there, and now Asa Newell as well. Like, I'm not saying that they're going to be a great defense, but like you've successfully, Trae Young, he has improved his defensive effort. I feel like we need to qualify that every time we talk about the Hawks and Trae Young's defense. It's still just, it's similar to he's worse because he's slighter, but like teams go after Jalen Brunson on the Knicks, even though like he's not someone who doesn't try, like not try. And Trae Young, we've seen the try factor. I was listening to Dunked On, by the way, a few days, and he called the Hornets try curious, and it got me really laughing because it's like he's not sure whether they're gonna try or not. I thought that was great. But saying that Trae Young tries made me, he's try curious on the defensive end now. But it's like he's so slight it doesn't matter. But they've kind of just insulated themselves so well against, even if they can't be a top level defense, they have core lineups that they can get to that will be a top level defense. And now I think you get into the health factor with them, and I think that's maybe the biggest argument is to like Kristaps and Jalen Johnson specifically. If either one of those two guys doesn't stay healthy, their frontline rotation is not the most proven. Like you have Onyeka Okongwu, and you have some guy like, is playing Dyson Daniels and Risache as like kind of your three, like not the end of the world, but you are like sacrificing some things there. Trae Young is still a ticket to, like, when you look at some of the lineups he has had to carry and the level of offensive talent there. I know that the Hawks have not been like setting the world on fire offensively really under Quinn Snyder. They still can when Trae's on the floor, and that was with him having like not a good season not an efficient season by his standards last year. And I think he was dealing with some Achilles stuff. If he just shoots better from three or nudges up the floater a little bit, this team becomes so much better. So I'm looking at them, and it's maybe I'm like drinking the offseason Kool-Aid a little, like gulping it a little too, enthusiastically. But this is the most balanced Trae Young team I've ever seen, and I think it helps where my biggest question might be about their secondary offensive creation, but it's like, I don't know, like between Nickeil Alexander-Walker and if Jalen Johnson is healthy, and now Luke Kennard, who is, we know him more as a shooter, but like when he's healthy and it feels like, I don't know if there's any cartilage left in his knees, but he's got some just, what's the buzzword? Like shifty wiggle. Like he's got some of that off the dribble. Yeah. And so, go ahead.
I was just going to say, he's not a special. He is and is not a specialist because the shooting is like he's one of the most accurate 3-point shooters ever. But like he definitely has wiring that is like I think to facilitate when I'm on the ball, and like some guys don't have that, and so it's not his carrying skill, but it's definitely like a part of the package for him. Whereas if he's healthy and on the floor, like he really is like a force multiplier offensively, not just because he's a shooter.
I think, and by the way, they still have the ability to do this. I would feel more comfortable if just like there was another floor general type that wasn't Kobe Buffkin on this, and he's had like the other night he had a really good summer league game, so maybe he's able to give you something this year. But like backup point guard, if you want to call, I know they have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you can go get that in the middle of the season. Like they have the trade flexibility to do it, and I was not prepared to be this high on the Atlanta Hawks entering the summer. If anything, I was like veering towards the opposite direction. And so maybe they're a little too dependent on like, okay, the most improved player, Dyson Daniels, was that lightning in a bottle or was it for real? And now you're relying on Zachary Risache, and how much you can actually rely on Asa Newell. So if you're doing things like that, I can see where the inexperience and the mystery box stuff might work against them. But like when you look at the East and how many questions we have about teams such as the Bucks, the Heat, the Sixers, the Pacers, it just feels like there's a certainty in Atlanta that so many teams outside of the Orlandos, the New York, the Clevelands just do not enjoy right
Yeah,
now.
I think that's right. Weirdly, like, is one of the biggest points of uncertainty actually surrounding Trey, because it not forget the extension stuff. Just like the his 3-point shot has not fallen like at high enough rates for a couple years now, and the Achilles, I don't know if even he said it, but it's definitely been speculated that the Achilles like was a factor there. I wonder, and I'm not just like, it's not just like a devil's advocate thing. I actually do wonder, because I think it's possible he is he still, for a minute there, he was a guy that, like, if you have Trae Young, your offense just can't be worse than 10th, and maybe it's top 5 just because he's not quite the Steph level singular driver of offense, but like he's in that next tier of guys. Is he capable of being that with more talent around him now, or is this what we've seen the last couple years, where the counting stats are still great, but like from an efficiency perspective, he's not good enough to be that guy that's driving your whole offense? Maybe he doesn't need to be with more talent, and if you have Porzingis, the spacing's great. But does that resonate at all? Like I'm not sure he's still there.
I think he is. And I think what impacted him more than anything, and again, and like some of the offensive lineups were able to sing with him less than his best, it was the lift was so heavy because there was the lack of that secondary ball handling and a lack of spacing when you're looking at the pull other players had. You've now addressed, I would say probably, I guess, like the shooting more so, just because I don't know how to feel about Naw as like a secondary ball handling guy. So between Kristaps, if Jalen Johnson's healthy, having Luke Kennard there, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is improved as a shooter, it feels like there's going to be more room for him to work in the half court. And I would be if he's healthy, I'd be pretty surprised if we don't see his efficiency like uptick. I don't want to say dramatically, but fairly substantially. And so I do believe that. And just, the kind of Clint Capella, like waxing and waning, like you kind of lost like the lob threat that you would have wanted. And so maybe you still don't have that idea, but like Onyeka Okongwu's there, and like that's not Porzingis' game, but like now you've replaced it with more of a spacing element, which I think ends up helping Trey as a scorer, and then a sprayer. Like when looking at his passing, maybe again you're not gonna see as many assists at the rim, perhaps this year, but with Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu, maybe you do.
Yeah, I guess I'm pulling the stats up now. I'm freaking out about like 41% from the field, 34% from 3. The year before he was 43 and 37, which is like I'm not worried if he shoots 43% from the field and 37%.
What's his 2-point percentage look like?
It's been like 47-ish the last couple of years. He had a couple of years over 50. I think those actually, but yeah, he's like 47%, pretty metronomically the last 3.
Is that bold? I will predict that Trae Young hits half or more of his 2-pointers this year.
Oh, that's a great bold prediction. I'll probably steal that if I get assigned that. Because you're right. The idea of like of Porzingis stretching, maybe he just goes on a floater blitz because there's nobody in there. I could see that happening.
Man, if he's not healthy, it's weird because it's not so much his production for me that I think makes this team so good, but it's sort of the combinations and the options that he opens up by being on the floor. And if he's not able to be on the floor, I will say, aside from something happening to Trae Young himself, could totally flip my perception of this team.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's kind of the same case as it was in Boston, where he just is an element that you're not replicating what Porzingis provides through somebody else. Like you get it from him or you don't get it in terms of like the spacing, the switch busting, like all that stuff. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to force you to use a veto because you didn't use one, but I had the Knicks in my B tier. I mean, excuse me, the A tier. Like I had the Knicks.
I was going to veto that real hard.
I had the Knicks ahead of Orlando and Atlanta because I believe that they're kind of like there's just a separation between them and Cleveland for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But you have them in. Would you keep them in the? I just want you to use a veto. You didn't use.
Yeah,
a veto.
I will use a veto, and they have to go up to the top tier with Cleveland. Look, well, maybe lay out what is your main reason for not having the Knicks in the top tier if you had to boil it. Like, what's your biggest concern?
What they have telegraphed this offseason, and it's not unreasonable, is that they believe their team, as currently constructed, is a title contender, meaning that they could win the championship, whether you view that as just coming out of the East or I would view it as if you think that you can win the championship, it's beating anyone that you may face in the Western Conference. I don't think they're there. And I think the signings they're there in the sense of, do I think they're the second or third best team in the East? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like the signings of Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele, like they make your rotation deeper. But I feel like we're just overlooking some things where like the wing depth on this team right now is pretty bad outside of Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby. And then the offense should be better under Mike Brown. Like I think there's more interplay between Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, that'll be a great thing. What are they defensively? Can they be a league average defensive team while tapping into the full weight of their offense? I don't know. And like their signings in Yabusele and Clarkson have leaned almost all the way towards offense. And now they were fifth in offense last year, but they were 14th after January 1st. So I kind of get the inclination, but I'm sitting here like, I feel like people, I hate saying this because it makes me an a-hole. Just Jordan Clarkson is not what I feel like a lot of people are making Jordan Clarkson out to be right now.
Right.
Like he improved as a passer in Utah, but just like that's not someone who was driving when they were overachieving. He wasn't the one driving it, and he was putting up numbers when he was playing for a really bad team and not doing so with like the utmost of efficiency. I worry about both him and Josh Hart and Yabusele all coming off the same bench. So I just don't know what to think there. And I also think that there is the potential for just a curveball to be thrown. And now it could be a good curveball, at least in my eyes, where it's like, oh, does LeBron decide rather than what we reported about him going to the Mavericks like a week ago? Like, does he go, okay, here, but could you see them moving Mitchell Robinson or Mikal Bridges because they didn't sign an extension? I think there's a lower floor here, or I shouldn't even say that. Their floor feels exceptionally high, but they have a lower ceiling to me right now. And it's not because I believe that Jalen Brunson's like a limiting stylistic factor on offense. I actually believe the opposite. I just don't know what their defensive ceiling is. And I also I have some concerns about Mike Brown too. What was one of the Kings fans' biggest complaints about him when he got fired? His rotation was too top heavy. And everyone's viewing him as like this antidote to Tom Thibodeau running a shallow rotation, which I find curious. They have more options now because this is the other thing that, and I was hard on Tibbs. Like I became a Tibbs defender, I feel like, by the end of last year. But everyone who was play the kids, make the rotation deeper. Who did you want him to play a bunch more? Like, okay, trying Deuce McBride, trying Mitchell Robinson in the starting lineup when he was healthy. That stuff, he didn't maybe experiment enough. Do you run into that with Mike Brown? I'm sure like that was a mandate, so it won't. But Tyler Kolek has not impressed me during Summer League. Pacome Dadier was whatever before he gets injured. Like, just where is the extra pizzazz like coming from? I think it's meaningfully. It means something that their rotation is deeper. Like they're two more NBA players deep.
Right.
But like in terms of measuring up to Cleveland, I have a really tough time getting. Like I couldn't pick them to beat Cleveland in a 7-game series, right? You couldn't. I don't know what the case would be for them to beat Cleveland in a 7-game series right now, quite frankly.
So that's a great segue because that's my sticking point with I think Cleveland in the regular season, there'll be a bigger gap between Cleveland as the top seed in the East and the Knicks at number 2 than there will be between the Knicks and like Atlanta or Orlando or whatever. I think like regular season wise, I'm much more persuaded that the Knicks don't belong in this tier, but the Cavs just keep leaving the playoffs before they should. And sometimes that's happened because the Knicks beat them. And the Knicks, in contrast, like just keep proving it in postseason settings. Like, I mean, I trust Brunson. I don't love how Brunson plays. It gets results. It works. They keep, they've had good postseasons. I think the fact that I don't trust the Cavs yet to figure it out in the games that matter is just why I have them in this same tier, but I have to acknowledge all the points you brought up about the Knicks, like potential frailties, while at the same time, like I think you should say Jordan Clarkson, like not a big deal, still probably better than Campaign, like maybe not. Mike Brown, who knows? The offense has to be more dynamic and interesting and varied with him than Thibodeau. So like there's these marginal improvements I think that you could point to that may not even really matter until the postseason. But I do think that there is an argument that the Knicks should be better in a handful of ways. And they should, in fact, like the expectation should be that they're better in a handful of ways. The Cavs are great. They're going to win 60 games or whatever it is again and run away with the number 1 seed. And then what happens after that? I'm pricing that in, I guess, just because I think that you have to consider that type of thing. If there's like, who are the best teams? Like, I think that I would trust the Knicks to go farther than the Cavs in the playoffs. Like, just, I don't know, maybe I'll change my tune if Cleveland pulls it off, but I don't know. That's part of it.
I feel uncomfortable saying this, but I almost feel like if we were factoring in just the playoffs, that I would have the Magic ahead of the Knicks in a tier right now, because like if you can operate in the muck, and we did see like the Knicks kind of ratcheted it up defensively at points in the playoffs. I'm not trying to dismiss that.
Oh yeah.
But like, couldn't you see Orlando when you're looking at the overall balance, like the separation between their offense and defense? Doesn't it feel like they would have better balance or could have better balance than the Knicks?
I would still look like you were on the high end and you said they might have the number 14 offense. I'm way more concerned about Orlando's
I said top
offense.
14. That was
okay,
a clean
top
like,
14. That could be number one. I'm way more concerned about Orlando's postseason scoring than I am about the Knicks' postseason defense, because we've seen the Knicks hit a level that that is okay. This flies in the playoffs. If you can play this hard, like and defend this way, you're fine. We assume Orlando's going to be better offensively. I feel like such an old man being like, I need to see it, but I have questions about Orlando's scoring until they answer them.
Grant, to quote the Santa Claus, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing.
Oh,
is that like, did I misquote it?
That sounds sufficiently like faux profound, I think. Is this a Tim Allen Santa Claus? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Cavs do you worry at all about like their kind of point of attack defense, or just their overall wing? Like, it's Hunter and it's Lonzo Ball and it's Dean Wade now that Isaac Okoro's gone. Now, I was fine with the Isaac Okoro trade. He wasn't a playoff player to me.
Exactly.
So I'm not trying to say, they fucked up. Isaac Okoro should still be there.
Yep.
They can do it. And like, you have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Like, those are your stopgaps. Mm-hmm. But I would probably still like their primary defensive wing, when you have Garland and Mitchell, to be better than what they have right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You just made me think of something. I think Lonzo Ball, to me, is like the Sixers of players, in that, like, you should not expect full health. Ooh. But if you get it, he's a huge addition, like massive to what Cleveland might do. And the Sixers should not expect full health. But if you get it, they're like the first or second seed in the conference. So it's like the Ball thing. It just made me think, like, that was such a great trade, because Okoro just clearly was not going to be on the floor in the minutes that mattered, and Ball like absolutely can be. If he plays 25 regular season games, you'd still throw him out there.
And you know what's interesting about that is, I should have looked this. I didn't know I was going to make this point, so I can't say I should have looked at the numbers for it. But hasn't it seemed like their offense has what's lacked the necessary dynamic in a lot of like the playoff settings? And he's someone who comes in and can add just different looks, not just as a shooter, but like, no, you don't want him breaking down set defenses, but as a ball mover, as throwing those hit-ahead passes or getting out in transition. Like, he still does all of that stuff. And so it feels like, I know what he can do defensively, and I know he's a good fit. And if you were going to lose Ty Jerome, like, yeah, for sure. But I kind of feel like where Cleveland has lagged sometimes, like, he might just add a dynamic to their offense. They had the best postseason offense in the league, so I guess I'm just basing this off an eye test that was completely wrong. Through 9 games, though. So yeah. I feel like their offense could be a touch more, even if they lost on ball dynamism by going from Ty Jerome to Lonzo Ball. It feels like they might have opened up more. And like, by the way, the other thing is, have we mentioned his name yet? Like, could Evan Mobley just get better again?
Yeah. Right. He probably will. Like, shouldn't he at this stage of his career? I think like, I just think Ball, like, maybe the connective passing is like all it takes, and just having like Jerome, even he kind of Okoro'd in that, like, yeah, it looks good. I mean, looked great regular season, and it's like, oh, we kind of can't play this guy because his like bullshit, like leaning into the defender doesn't work to against defenders that have scouted it, like that type of thing. Like, Ball, I think I don't know what takes Ball off the floor other than just health, and that's like, for a team with Cleveland's ambitions, like, that's the only thing you should care about.
He is the Philadelphia 76ers of Derek White's. That's what.
Yeah,
that's
it has
what
to be
Ball.
Something tying back to Derek White. Who's the Derek White of?
Who's the Derek White of? I don't know. Like I don't know. Dwayne Wade. Is there something with a Dwayne Wade there? I'm just thinking of shot blocking guards. I don't really know where. Their depth, though, I think that inoculates them against one of the like regular season pratfalls is just their floor. So I agree with you probably on pretty much everything you said about the playoffs. What is their regular season win total floor? Is it just 50? Like what is?
Yeah, if you take out, it's like it might be like 53, 54. If you just okay, if Garland misses 40 games or something, or Mitchell or whatever, then maybe. But like, it's so high. Other than we can't really compare to the West because it's such a different environment. But like, I don't know, floor wise, I don't think any team in this conference is within like 5 wins.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they're going to win at least 5 more games than anybody in the East. Should we recap? See where we ended up, so that I'm sure everybody agrees with everything. That's what was going on in the chat. As they said, we were 100% right. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's start tier F. We've got Charlotte, Brooklyn, and Washington. I guess in that order. Do we agree on consensus order, or does that even matter?
I kind of feel like there was someone in the chat that said the Wizards are going to be like better than the Hornets and the Nets.
Oh, right.
And I could see the Wizards like just be like, it feels like the Nets are going to try harder to be bad than the Wizards this year. So do you want to flip flop Washington and Brooklyn?
Sure, why not? Doesn't make a huge difference.
Look at that.
All right, moving on.
We're obsessing over
Toronto,
the details.
Miami, Indiana, and Chicago in the D tier, I guess. This is your play-in tier, basically. Above them, Detroit, Milwaukee, Boston. Dan exercised a veto, moved the Hawks 2 tiers up, but the Sixers tier, which is the one above that, doesn't really exist. We've decided they're just like, it's like a
question
different
tier,
different dimension. So the Sixers are by themselves in the B tier, just because who the fuck knows. Above them, we've got Orlando and Atlanta. I have no issue with that. I see the upside in Atlanta. I did an off-season grade piece for them, and they got an A+. So I don't know what I'm talking. I don't know why I'm.
You're like, put them in the F tier.
Yeah. Should they even be in this conference? And then above them in the top tier, I exercised a veto to get the Knicks up here alongside the Cavs, to the 2 top teams in the East. How do you feel?
I like the tie out Derek White's the Dwayne Wade of Eddie Jones's. How do you feel about that one?
The Dwayne Wade of Eddie Jones's. I love it. I think that's really well said.
Starville, other than my Hornets winning 82 games, you're 100% accurate. I fave it. I like it. Thank you, Starville. This is a fun exercise. We will do it with the West at some point. But do you have any like final, just anything like coming away from it, like overall arching thoughts about the East?
I would say I don't normally feel this way after we do something like this, but don't you think that the tiers kind of, for the most part, are like fairly clearly delineated? There's like the very worst, there's your play-in chunk, there's that squishy middle, and then there's just a couple at the I don't know, like normally I feel like there's more room for debate.
Yeah, I think aside from the Sixers, it doesn't feel like there's any major like the Hawks are probably the most divisive team in the Eastern Conference, right? Like because the Sixers, it's just, if you're going to tell me everybody plays in a bunch of games, like, okay, yeah, they're going to be good. And if they don't, they're going to be bad. So I'm trying to think of like, we talk about swing players. What's like the swing team? Because if you try to game it and say, well, like, is there a team that could really make a mega trade to try and do something? I could see it being the Pistons a little bit too, but like, could it also be the Hawks? Like one of those 2 teams, maybe?
I think maybe the way to look at it is like, which team or teams like have the opportunity to move like multiple tiers, like, and after it happened, you'd be like, oh, I get it. I think the Pistons maybe moving up would be one. I think Orlando jumping into the very top would be like that's on the table. I think, going the other way, certainly Boston or if there's a Giannis trade, Milwaukee could fall a couple tiers into there's the no hope. Like we don't even want to be in the play-in level.
Yeah. Is there like I can't even spot like, because you can't call it the Hawks. Like, is there a Detroit Pistons from last year in the conference? Like, what's the team that's on the younger end or like that's unproven? Is it? It would have to be the Raptors, I guess, is just the pick by default. Imagine if it was the Wizards.
Well,
all the young guys are just killing it.
Charlotte, if it's like if you want their team to the win total, you have to start with a team that has one in the teens, and Charlotte would qualify. Like is Charlotte going to win 44 games? Like that's your Pistons leap, which is just like. I don't know, man. That's a huge jump.
You can give me any record prediction for the Sixers, and I can't argue. I'd probably be with you. Eurostep, is the West going to be OKC then like 12 teams? I haven't thought about it that much yet, but it could be.
It could be.
This one's when the Bucks flip Kuzma and stuff for a real small forward, they'll jump up. Carry the hell on. Thank you,
Kendrick
K
Perkins
Perk.
in here.
Did you? I guess my read on the Eurostep podcast network know better than we did, but like my read on the Bucks is like they're not like they're saving. How are they trading Kyle Kuzma? I guess at this point because I'm assuming they're
positive
keeping their
value. Good luck.
well, because I'm assuming they won't attach first round equity because they're saving it. Like the whole idea to me was you bought yourself another year with Giannis, and now next summer when you could trade up to 3 first round picks, you trade that with Kyle Kuzma's expiring salary at that point, and then whatever else. That's my read on their situation. Like, did they sell? Like, if the Bucks get like a starting caliber wing, then yeah, I'm just trying to think. Like, are they gonna make a Kuzma? Like, are they gonna be the team that gets Jeremy Grant? And then I'm gonna have a lot of questions about like what they're doing. That's gonna get dicey.
I don't know. I find myself having to fight the pessimism when it comes to Milwaukee. I don't know why. I don't know what Giannis and Turner plus some guys gets you with coached by Doc Rivers. I don't know what that gets you. We'll see.
The Doc Rivers throw is just absolutely savage. Thanks for anyone who stuck with us. Well, I mean, this was short for us. 90 minutes is light work for this
Pretty
podcast, right? Are you have anything else to say, or are you ready to take us out of here?
Nope. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for watching, listening. Make sure wherever you're consuming this now, rate, review, subscribe. If you're seeing this on YouTube, weigh in there. Let us know. Use the comments to put in your whole tiers. It's only 15 teams. Like, give us. See,
here's the challenge. Can you come up with more tiers?
Yeah. The bar's been set at 6 for 15 teams. So, try to really split hairs better than we did. Good luck is what I would say to you. Let's see. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube podcast description. Until next time, shouts. Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.